SpaceX and NASA confident they can get the first crewed Dragon capsule launched in late May. NASA's InSight probe on Mars got an instrument stuck, and the Orion capsule passes critical testing for its Artemis 1 mission. It's Tuesday, March 24, 2020, day 2 of lockdown here in Australia. You wouldn't know it if you can hear those chainsaws. Let's talk some science.
Across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts and YouTube, this is Talking Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
Yes, indeedy, it is Talking Science time as the country and the world gets further and further into a lockdown phase. Dr. Brad Tucker, happy Quarantine Tuesday to you.
Yeah, exactly. It's another day at home, let's say that.
In paradise.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The brilliant thing I love there, and I alluded it to it in the opener, there are chainsaws right outside the window as the council workers are trimming the hedge because, gosh darn it, if the greenery doesn't look in shape.
Well, you got to prepare.
Well, they are saying that fresh air is good for us, and we are allowed to walk around the home. So
that's true.
It is the first time in 3 years that they've finally gotten around to it, or something like that. So anyway,
that's about right. Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of road resealed going on in the next few months here.
Well, you know what? It's probably a pretty good time to do it because there won't be any traffic on the roads, and they can just get in and get the job done. Although,
exactly,
I don't think we're going to be as efficient as Chinese infrastructure workers who can build a whole, what was it, a 50,000 bed hospital in 10 days?
Yeah, that's right. Not there. I'll take 1 kilometer of road in 3 months.
And that's just the planning phase. Hey, Brad, we can find you on Twitter at btucker22 and on Facebook, Dr. Brad Tucker. You can find me on Twitter at Mirrormat86. Find Trekzone all over social media. Just search for Trekzone. But Brad, let's dive into the headlines of the week.
Talking Science Headlines.
And it's a SpaceX show today as we move on with regular programming. They've finally launched their 6th batch of Starlink satellites after a couple of delays. Yeah,
it was a reused booster. This would be it was the 5th time this booster in particular was done, and it had a few different delays, but they finally got it up there now, bringing the total of satellites and about 360 as part of Starlink, and more people are seeing the trains overhead.
Yes, indeedy. Well, it was interesting with that Falcon 9. It was, as you say, it was the 5th time that it had launched. Unfortunately, it's not going to be used a 6th time. They had a bit of a malfunction and couldn't recover the booster.
That's right. So, obviously there was something going wrong. But, if you're still thinking about it, 5 times reuse instead of 5 separate rockets and the cost going in, still remarkable, and it's never going to turn out 100% perfect. So 5/6 is 86%, I think, if my math is done quite quickly. So, that's not bad.
Talking Science Stories of the Week.
And I say it's a SpaceX show because our first story of the week is SpaceX and NASA. They're looking pretty confident. They reckon that they can get the Crew Dragon up in late May.
That's right. We've talked quite a bit about all the testing Crew Dragon has done, and they had that last final abort test where they purposely blew up a rocket a few months ago. And now it seems to be everything is head, and despite, whatever's going on in the world, they want to hit this May launch window of the 2 astronauts who have been training for a long time. And, it would be a big signal of the reemergence of the U.S. of their launch capabilities for astronauts in particular, but also just how far SpaceX has come along.
Well, NASA's Mars lander, the InSight probe, had a little instrument that it was going to plow through the Martian soil, and it was going to find out what was going on beneath the surface. Unfortunately, I believe the soil was a bit more compacted than everyone thought here back on Earth, and it had to whack itself with a shovel to get unstuck.
Oh, look, I love this. This makes me feel so much better about myself and all my DIY projects where I just whack something to make it work. I've literally kicked a telescope to keep it moving. And, it worked. To be fair, I was told to do that. So, it feels good that we even have to do this on Mars. So InSight, which is, as you said, this mission to dig into the Martian soil to measure Mars quakes and temperature and thermal changes and pressure changes, it's been really hard to dig down because, as you said, that soil's a bit denser, it's a bit clumpier than they expected. And so one of the solutions was there's a little claw on InSight, and someone said, why don't we just whack it? And so they did. They just whacked it, and it worked. It was amazing. It worked. So I really love it. It's just one of these things that sometimes there isn't an elegant solution in space, and it just shows that space is just a further extension of our Earth-like issues and problems and things like that.
Alrighty, our last story of the week is the Orion spacecraft that Airbus has built for NASA's Artemis missions. Artemis 1 is coming up, and it's going to be the lunar mission. Very exciting on this one. And the more tests are being completed in advance of these missions taking flight.
Yeah, so Orion is the capsule that will be the ride for the astronauts on Artemis. Now, Orion, the first Orion capsule, will be uncrewed, but it's we've talked about delays with Boeing and SpaceX even. We don't say how well Orion has tracked. The Orion capsule has tracked really well in terms of it, and it was way ahead of actually the whole Space Launch System, the rocket. And so it just completed what's called the thermal vacuum testing, where you put space is really harsh. We think of it as being cold, which it is, but it also gets really hot, right? Depending on where you are relative to the Earth and Sun, it can be very cold, minus 150 degrees or so Celsius, and then heating up all the way to 150 degrees Celsius. You have to make sure your electronics and physical material will survive those harsh swings in temperature. So you put in these giant chambers and test it for weeks on end, which they did here. I think they tested it for 47 days to make sure that it will survive those harsh conditions and that trip of going to the moon and back.
Fantastic, Brad. Well, it has been fun to pick apart the stories of the week with you once again on Talking Science. As we move into lockdown, that's not going to stop us. We're going to be podcasting 3-4 days a week with Talking Science with these stories of the week over Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, sometimes Saturday as well, and our main show on Tuesday. It's a thrill to do it. I'm glad that you're still around, Brad, and be safe and stay well.
That's right, and everyone remember, if it doesn't work, just give it a whack, because NASA does on Mars.
And the scientists will be doing that to the coronavirus at some point.
That's right. If there's something to take away, whacking it and restarting it, that is completely acceptable.
Fantastic, Brad. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.